Hi, I'm Phil, and this is MTG Kiwi Philosophy. I know we're well into Excellent right now. The Pro Tour's just been, but we're going to go back in time to Kaladesh. And this is my version of a black-red panharmnicon deck. Or as I like to call it, it's a vicious circle. Enjoy the brew.
It's a vicious circle.
Okay, let's kick this off, and we're going to go with 4 copies of panharmnicon. Now we know panharmnicon is going to double any battlefield triggers, so we're going to go with 3 creatures with battlefield triggers, and the first of those creatures are Gonti, Lord of Luxury. Now Gonti is a mid-range creature. He's 2/3, he costs 4, double black and 2 other, but he does have the ability to trigger and search your opponent's library when he enters the battlefield for one of the top 4 cards. If you have a panharmnicon in play, you get to double that trigger. He has a second bonus, having Death Touch, which is also good. Secondly, you may even search for a removal, or possibly, if you get lucky, for a creature that you can drop in as well. Now the next creature we're going to go with is Noxious Gearhulk. We're going to go with 3 copies of this bad boy. Now he is a little bit pricey. He does cost 6 to get into the battlefield. He is 5/4. He is within that removal range. However, when he enters the battlefield, he can destroy an opponent's creature and you gain life equal to its toughness. Now if you've got a panharmnicon into place, we can double that trigger, and there's nothing better than gaining double life and destroying 2 creatures. Now for the last creature, we're going to go with 4 copies of Marionette Master. Now Marionette Master is a little bit pricey. She does cost 6, however she does have 2 good points to her. The first being, we can fabricate for 3 and make her 4/6. Or the second option is, we can go with 3 servos. Now if there's a panharmnicon in place, we can double that and we can go with both of those. So we can go +3 and 3 servos. But we're going to need more synergy in this deck. If we want Marionette Master to work, we need more artifacts. So we're going to go with 4 copies of Scrap Heap Scrounger. Now I like Scrap Heap Scrounger. It's a 2-drop. It's 3/2. We can get into play early. We can be offensive because it can't block, so we have to be offensive. So we want to be attacking all the time if we can. Be aggressive. Remember, we can always return Scrap Heap Scrounger from our graveyard. All we have to do is remove a creature that's in there. And I'm sure we can find ways of doing that. However, we can't be reliant on the panharmnicon and Marionette Master combo. We have to have more synergy in our deck. Our deck has to have more substance. And in order for us to have substance, we need to have forms of removal. So we're going to go with 4 copies of Unlicensed Disintegration. Now, I love Unlicensed Disintegration. 1 red, 1 black, 1 other. It only costs 3. It's instant speed. We can destroy an opponent's creature, and if we control an artifact, we can deal 3 damage to that opponent. It seems pretty good to me. If we have a Scrap Heap Scrounger attacking pre-combat, destroy their creature, turn 4, 6 damage. If we have other creatures out, extra damage. Having 4 of these in your deck means that we've got a chance of dealing 12 damage to our opponent if we have an artifact in play. I'm liking this. But we must remember, we are trying to stick with the theme of the artifacts, the panharmnicon, and the cycling theme. So we're going to go with 4 copies of Hope of Girapur. The synergy that Hope of Girapur brings is that it's a 1-drop artifact. It can be sacrificed, so it is going to trigger Marionette Master. It can be removed from the graveyard to bring Scrap Heap Scrounger back. It also has the other option of, when you do sacrifice Hope, that your opponent can't cast non-creature spells. We want to utilize Hope in other ways too. So offensively, it can fly and it can deal 1 damage. And if we want to stall our opponent dealing non-creature spells, we can sacrifice it and it'll die. And that's where we want to bring in 4 copies of Bone Picker. Now with us sacrificing Hope, it does mean that one of our creatures has died, and Bone Picker will cost 3 less to cast, meaning it's only going to be a 1-drop to get it into play with a 3/2 flying Death Touch creature. Hey, that is beautiful. Now with Bone Picker and Gonti, we have 8 creatures with Death Touch. So no, it's not straight removal, but it is battlefield removal. We also have 4 copies of the Unlicensed Disintegration, and we also have the 3 copies of the Noxious Gearhulk. That makes 15 potential removals for your deck. That's not too bad. We're really trying to utilize our creatures and removal in a synergy where we don't have to split between cards. We can have both, creatures and removal. Moving on to our next piece of synergy, we're going to go with 4 copies of Syndicate Trafficker. Syndicate Trafficker is ideal for this deck. It is a 2-drop, it is 3/1, we can sacrifice an artifact, give it +1, and it gets indestructible to the end of the turn. Now we've got so many artifacts in the deck already. Panharmnicons, Noxious Gearhulks, Scrap Heap Scroungers, Hopes. Not only can we sacrifice these artifacts to the Syndicate Trafficker, but we can also double down on the Marionette Master, dealing damage to our opponent. And of course, with Scrap Heap Scrounger, sacrifice to the Syndicate Trafficker, trigger Marionette Master, cycle from the graveyard. Eat, sleep, repeat. But you know what? I'm greedy, so I want to have another artifact in here that's going to help the synergy of the whole deck. And we're going to go with 2 copies of Treasure Map. I love Treasure Map. It's a 2-drop artifact. We can scry so we can look for the cards we want. And on top of that, we're getting those tokens on there so we can flip it and get those 3 treasures. Once we have those treasures in play, we can sacrifice them to the Marionette Master and deal upwards of 12 damage to our opponents. We can also use the treasures and sacrifice them to the Syndicate Trafficker, or we can use the treasures as mana to drop bigger base creatures into play. Okay, so before we wrap this up, I can't help myself, I'm a sucker for Planeswalkers. So we're going to go with 2 copies of Chandra, Torch of Defiance. Now we know that Chandra has 4 abilities, but we really want to focus on the middle 2. So we're always wanting to look at +1ing so we can get that extra mana to be able to cast the creatures we need, and the second one to help with the removal of your opponent's creatures. If we can get Chandra's emblem off, that's great. And lastly, let's move on to the land before we do a recap of the deck. And I'd like to start with 4 copies of Dragon Skull Summit and 4 copies of Canyon Slough. If we don't need Canyon Slough, we can always cycle it and draw into something else. And we're gonna wrap it up with, of course, 8 mountains and 8 swamps. Now for a quick recap. We're gonna look at our removal first. So we have 4 copies of Unlicensed Disintegration, 3 Noxious Gearhulks, 2 Chandras, 4 Bone Pickers, and 4 Gontis. That's a total of 16 cards with potential removal. The list of cards Scrap Heap Scrounger can cycle from the graveyard: Hope, Gonti, Noxious Gearhulk, Bone Picker, Marionette Master, Syndicate Trafficker. Artifacts we can sacrifice to the Syndicate Trafficker: Hope, Scrap Heap Scrounger, Noxious Gearhulk, the Treasure Map, and Treasures. And also, don't forget Panharmnicon if we're desperate. Now, no deck is complete without a sideboard. Personally, myself, a sideboard is like having a handbag. And I'm a man. I don't need a handbag. However, we're going to roll with it anyway. So here we go. We're going to go with 4 copies of Fatal Push, 4 copies of Walk the Plank, and 2 copies of Bontu's Last Reckoning. Removal, removal, removal. You can never have enough removal. Sideboard of removal. Why not? But moving on. We also want to be able to protect our creatures. So how do we do this? We're going to go with 4 copies of Supernatural Stamina. Now, the beauty about Supernatural Stamina is when your creature dies, it actually leaves the battlefield. So if your Panharmnicon is in play and it has a battlefield trigger, booyah, she's back. And lastly, we're going to go with 1 copy of Bontu, the Glorified. Bontu's in there because he is a cheap creature. He's 4/6 menace indestructible, and if a creature dies, he can attack. So, you know, we're going to probably look at sacrificing the servos, sacrificing an artifact, triggering Marionette Master again. So there's that vicious merry-go-round, around and around and around. Anyway, that's all for today. Thank you very much. This is my first of many videos to come. Please like, share, and follow. Subscribe, whatever you're into. I'll see you on the flip side. Ciao.